Well, let's bring in now attorney Joe Marrone to weigh in. Joe, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So you watched the whole thing? You listened to the whole thing?
I seen it. It was interesting.
Okay. Well, let's roll one of the clips here because we're talking about the whole thing we wanted to see yesterday. Is there obstruction of justice? Let's roll this.
Flynn had been forced to resign the day before, and the controversy around General Flynn at that point in time was centered on whether he had lied to the vice president about the nature of his conversations with the Russians, whether he had been candid with others in the course of that. And so that happens on the day before. On the 14th, the president makes specific reference to that. And so that's why I understood him to be saying that what he wanted me to do was drop any investigation connected to Flynn's account of his conversations with the Russians. The president of the United States has asked, and when it comes from the president, I took it as a direction to get rid of this investigation.
Okay, so if he took it as a direction to stop this investigation of Flynn and this Russian connection to the election, is that obstruction of justice?
Under normal circumstances, if you're dealing with a citizen and a non-executive of his level, yes. Anytime you impede or influence a criminal investigation that you know about, that in itself is obstruction of justice.
Okay, I'll bounce back at you. I'm the president. I just said, I hope you stop investigating this. I wish you would. Hopes and wishes aren't obstruction of justice.
But what you just say, he's picking up the phone, he's speaking to me, he's the president of the United States. He demands, he has a lot of power.
Did he demand? He said, I hope and I wish.
Well, he says, I hope you can see your way through this. Flynn's a good guy.
I hope.
So he's telling him in a nice way, let's put this thing aside. Let's get the cloud away so I can focus on my agenda.
I hope you buy a Chevy today. That doesn't mean go buy a Chevy today.
But there's no question that he knew a criminal investigation was ongoing against General Flynn. We know that. Well, he was being investigated at the time.
Joe, you brought up the cloud. We do have that moment when James Comey talked about lifting the cloud.
I think what he meant by the cloud, and again, I could be wrong, but what I think he meant by the cloud was the entire investigation is taking up oxygen and making it hard for me to focus on the things I want to focus on. The ask was to get it out that I, the president, am not personally under investigation.
All right.
Well, there you have it. I mean, he's basically using the excuse that, hey, look, listen, I'm trying to get my agenda going here. Get this thing out of the way, and let's focus on, you know, moving forward as a country. But what's he actually doing? He's telling the director of the FBI to basically let this guy go, to stop the investigation. That in itself is obstruction of justice, because we know he knows that General Flynn's under a criminal investigation.
But isn't the issue here that it's really up to interpretation? Because he's saying, no, I was just saying that in general.
Listen, this whole thing is totally out of control. What are we trying to do here? Is this just a Democratic coalition pushing to undermine whatever President Trump's trying to do as a president? Or is this someone who's actually committing a crime? And that becomes the debate, I mean, at this point.
God, how do you prove that he was trying to obstruct justice? Well, I mean, it seems like he was.
Comey comes off as a very credible man, but then you also have a man yesterday who I think his reputation was somewhat affected. He felt that he had to get out to the public and explain what actually happened, because he admits he woke up in the middle of the night when he was seeing Donald Trump's tweets.
But his credibility took a hit yesterday when he admitted he leaked information.
That's what you're referring to, in the middle of the night when he
but when did he did it as a private citizen? He was no longer the FBI director.
Well, let's hear what he had to say about it.
Okay.
The president tweeted on Friday, after I got fired, that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
Well, he was a private citizen at that point.
But he still put out information. He leaked information.
There's no doubt. The question is, does he become culpable for that, or is just his way of telling the American people, I'm going to give you what information I know to help the special prosecutor, Robert Mueller, in the investigation? Does it really matter at the end of the day? I say no. I think at this point, where you're at with the investigation, we know what's on the table. If you're going to try to accuse the president of obstruction of justice, that's a big fight. Look, we already know what he did. He hired his own attorney, the president. He got one of the best attorneys in New York. And he came out with a statement yesterday and spun it beautifully. He put it all on Comey.
You want to hear that?
Oh, listen, that was beautiful.
Okay, listen.
I love that.
Although Mr. Comey testified that he only leaked the memos in response to a tweet, the public record reveals that the New York Times was quoting from those memos the day before the referenced tweet, which belies Mr. Comey's excuse for this unauthorized disclosure of privileged information and appears to be entirely retaliatory. We will leave it to the appropriate authorities to determine whether these leaks should be investigated along with all the others that are being investigated.
So who are they? Is this the congressional committee that's looking into this?
This is quintessential Trump. He just spun it and made Comey the bad guy. He now included him into the bucket of leakers. This guy, look, you're going to call us a leaker? Comey's a leaker as well. So don't take his testimony for what it is. The other thing that's interesting is they keep saying now the statements that Comey made, he vindicated the president. He said he wasn't part of the investigation. Well, that wasn't the case. The investigation wasn't about President Trump. It was whether his campaign undermined the election by using Russian contacts to affect the election. That's what it's about.
So if that's what it's about, how could Donald Trump not be a part of that? You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Bridgegate in New Jersey. Some people got convicted of that, but not Governor Christie because it was my people.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with it. They were not.
You know, it's going to be interesting here with Robert Mueller, special prosecutor. You know, will he subpoena Donald Trump's tax returns? And how's that applicable in this case? Well, it's very applicable because you got to remember Donald Trump is a global real estate mogul. For all these years, he dealt with international foreign people, specifically Russia. And it's very easy to get an enormous amount of funding to, you know, launder money. So he he keeps continuing to say he's under audit. But can now this special prosecutor get these tax returns out on the table?
If Mueller asked for that, President Trump has to turn it over?
Well, he's going to issue a subpoena. He's going to be subject to turn those returns over. And the question is, are they going to scrutinize those records? I think yesterday Donald Trump was sending a clear message by hiring that attorney, that personal attorney that came out and made a pretty clear and concise statement. He was swift about it. He says, listen, if you're going to come after me, I'm going to fight you hard. I don't really think that they want to disturb what's going on with the president trying to move forward. But it's going to be interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. But Trump tweeted this morning saying complete vindication.
That sounds like him.
And Comey's a leaker. Thank you.
That's my pleasure.